All right. Well, thank you, Nora, for joining us. We're super excited that you accepted our invitation to be on the Channel Talks podcast here at 360 Insights. I want to introduce everyone to Nora Finnerty. She is the marketing content specialist right here at 360 Insights. So, Nora, you're part of the family. This is kind of nice when we get to have conversations with our peers and learn a little bit more about each other. But before we dive in, would you mind just sharing with our audience what you do at 360 Insights?
Yeah, of course. And thank you for having me, Akilah. It's great to be here. So my title is a content marketing specialist, and I work specifically in the group travel department. So I help to integrate community service initiatives into our group travel and then help to tell those stories. I also will sometimes help with content as needed, but mostly what my job surrounds is getting to know organizations all over the world and helping our clients integrate some sort of initiative into their travel that will benefit those organizations.
Okay, so travel, global content, storytelling. I'm like, can we switch places? No, I love
It's
what I do, but your job, I mean, I can't wait to dive into this conversation because just knowing a little bit about what you do, I'm so excited about this discussion today and such a super cool job. But before we even get into the questions, I want to know, and I asked all of my guests this, can you recall your very first job and what skill do you feel like you've really embraced from that very first point in time to even now? Something that you maybe a skill that you learned then that you apply to what you do today.
Yeah, my very first job was scooping ice cream when I was 14 years old at a local candy store, and it was a great job. I really, as a first job, I really learned responsibility and accountability, and I think a skill that I learned and I still implement today is trying to make sure that you're setting yourself or your colleagues up for success. And so an example from that job would be I would be the last person to leave at the end of the day. I'd have to make sure everything was set up for my colleagues the next morning. So when they came in, everything would be ready for them to go and they wouldn't have a whole lot of work and put them out and interrupt their schedule. So I think the skill that I've learned most is trying to be efficient with my time and make sure that I or others are set up for success.
You know what, Nora, this is just amazing because we honestly, right? We just met through this process here of talking about potentially doing a podcast. And the little that I know about you, that is who you are. Like I can confirm that that is you. Like you are absolutely super efficient and looking out for others. And I think it falls in line with just what you do here at 360. So I love that. I love when we're walking in our purpose and it matches our or it's in alignment with our personal brand. It just all aligns perfectly. So super cool. Who knew, right? From scooping ice cream to now. So thanks for sharing that with our audience. You mentioned in your introduction, you mentioned CSR, right? And you're talking about corporate responsibility. Can you define that term for our audience before we kind of dive into this topic?
Yeah. So CSR stands for corporate social responsibility. And it's kind of a new term in the last, I'd say, decade. And it's really been about corporations taking that extra step to making sure that they're integrating some sort of responsibility to the environment, to their community, and giving back. I met someone who was in events and planning over during the pandemic who was volunteering there. She invited me to go along to a trip to Aruba. And initially I thought that she was inviting me to a vacation that I'm going to have to pay for. And she said, no, I want you to come along on this trip that we're running for a company that will be traveling there. And I want you to help me set up a community service event similar to what we've been doing the last couple of years during the pandemic. So it was really the inspiration from the work that we had been doing. And she wanted to continue this in her work as a program manager doing travel. And so I was brought along just to help to integrate this first ever in the world, in the company that I was working for at the time, which is now 360. The first CSR that they ever did was in Aruba. And it was, we worked with a local food bank. We got all these supplies that were purchased from the money that was put aside in the budget for this. And we had the group come after breakfast one morning and help package up all of these food items for this food bank. And it was wonderful. We had people from the organization there talking about all the people that were impacted by the pandemic. And I think because of the pandemic and because of all these travel bans, it really was destinations that were impacted, particularly those that their whole economy is based around tourism. And
Right.
because we travel to these places so often, we know these people. We've gotten to know the destination management companies. We've gotten to know the people that work at hotels who were suddenly left without work and without knowing what was going to happen next. And so when we started traveling again, it was so important for us as a company to make sure that we were going the extra mile to make sure that we were helping those in these destinations that we know and help make our trips so successful.
Amazing. So that at that point, that was really what, so that trip, the free trip is what sparked your interest.
Completely. And it made it seem so feasible. I mean, it was an hour-long event in a longer, of course, program that resonated so much with people after the pandemic. And it made it seem as though, again, why not? Why not do this? It didn't take much of a lift. It didn't cost all that much more. And so it was an easy yes. And so after my integration into this first project, I diligently stayed on and tried to make sure that this was a thing that continued. And I was so fortunate that HMI, now 360, brought me on to continue this work.
It's more than just a trend. Would you say, like, it's not a fad, it's not a trend, this is just becoming a lifestyle, right? And so my first question to you then, if that's the case, and as corporations really reevaluate their planning, their strategies, especially as it relates to events, what's the case for blending CSR, corporate social responsibility, and events together?
Yeah. And I mean, my question back to you is why not? I think events offer an incredible opportunity for companies to integrate corporate social responsibility, particularly when it involves travel and an external work. I have realized in my work and trying to integrate this that you already have all of these things set up when you're working at these events. You have the space, you have the people. So integrating this small element into an event or into your group travel only elevates your experience and what you're taking away and what your participants are taking away. And it gives that extra element just to set it to over the top, to really take it to the next level and to be that thing that someone maybe didn't expect to walk away with, but they end up leaving feelings, the more holistic feeling of having been to a place and having been involved in a community.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you're really thinking outside of the four walls, so to speak, right? CSR kind of forces you to really think about your community, where your dwelling place. You know, you're here for, maybe it's fun, it's incentive travel, maybe you're here at an event to learn, upskill, but now it's almost as if it's causing all of us, and I'm saying us because I'm attending events as well. And I think I shared with you, even at one of our events that we partner with, one of the main industry events, now our organization has looked at ways to not only host the event, but how do we give back to the community? What does that mean? And so it's really top of mind for everyone. I totally agree with you on that. Can you share an example just for some of the folks maybe who are listening that are still like, okay, I get what, CSR is, but what does it look like at an actual event? Can you share an example maybe of a unique CSR event that went beyond like the traditional, philanthropy, for example?
Yeah. So we have a lot of really fun and unique events that we help to integrate, and each one really does have a totally new element to it, kind of starting from scratch in a way, because we're working with a different client in a different location and often a different organization. So we end up having to get really creative and think outside of the box. There's a group in Cabo that we get to benefit called Los Cabos Kids, and they are a home for children. And we've had many groups go to Cabo. So we've had groups come down and start a painting project or start a garden beautification project, and have other groups come and help build it. So we have a larger thing to give back. So that has been a really fun and unique opportunity.
Wow, I love that. So it's even greater impact, right? So what you're saying is you're working with all of these different clients, completely different companies, and they're choosing maybe this specific location. Who wouldn't want to go to Cabo, right? But
Mhm.
then you're building upon that. And I love that, because then the organization, the nonprofit organization, benefits even more because we're all working together for a common goal to help benefit that, for example, that orphanage. I love that. That's, you're making even an even greater impact.
Yeah. And our work in Cabo with Casa Hogar, another home for children, has been such a great way to bring people to a location and get them really involved in the community, aware of what's really going on outside of the walls. I mean, we're all on vacation, we're having a great time, but
Mhm.
taking that 1 hour just to really immerse yourself in the location can really bring the whole trip to light and really wrap that whole holistic type of integration and give the participants the one thing to bring home with them that they can really be proud about.
Is it a difficult sell? So let's talk about that, right? How internally, because like you just said, we're here on vacation, we're having a great time, all expenses paid. Have you ever seen pushback from attendees in participating in something like this? And how do you overcome that? So for organizations who are listening right now, they're thinking about, hey, I want to incorporate CSR, but I'm worried that it'll be a difficult sell. How do you address that?
Yeah, so it's a wonderful point to bring up and a good conversation to have because with attendees, you can sometimes have people who aren't interested, but what we do and what we make sure we do is that we always offer this as a optional add-on. People can show up if they'd like. It's never something that they necessarily have to come and join in on, but it's definitely something that we do see most people show up for because it's such a small part of this trip that they go on. And if we really get the company involved in promoting it prior to the trip through pre-trip packets, and we'll mention the work that we'll be doing. We have more often than not, most of the group show up to help.
Mhm.
And it's just starts with the first trip, and it could be something as small as making a donation. So when we do have clients who may be a little bit hesitant about integrating this into their program, they're bringing these people here to enjoy themselves. They've won this trip. They're there to really just only enjoy themselves and to have the company that they work so hard for thank them.
Mhm.
So there are clients who think, well, we don't want to make them feel those that they have to work. And so my response to that is that we won't make it feel like work. Number one, we always want to make sure that people, it's fun and it's and invigorating, and people are leave feeling invested.
Mhm.
Um, and we have all these different tiers. So we can start with something as simple as a donation made from us as part of the group package. So for every single one of our trips that we go on for group travel, we do have a line item helps that is dedicated to CSR. So that comes from us, and we ask our clients if they'd like to integrate more, if they would like to add on or match our donation. So and sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And so it can be as simple as matching the donation. And it can be, and if we do that, we would love to promote this with the group and let them know that this is happening. And what a great opportunity for our clients to share their mission and they exemplify them working towards a mission. So we share all this information with attendees prior to their arrival to get the excitement going, get them aware of the work that's being done and give them the opportunity to help grow the fiscal donation. Another option that we have is just operating a group on site to do some sort of event. And so that can be as simple as us making sure we have items for people to package that then they get brought back to an organization. Or we can do something even more involved, such as building bikes or building rafts and having a bigger party per se. And then the last tier that we have explored is actually getting people to go to the location offsite of the property that they're staying and
Mhm.
going to an organization to do work there, which has been even, I think, the most beneficial and the most rewarding for everyone when that happens.
So I think the tiered approach is key, meaning you really don't have to, like, if you're just starting out, maybe you're starting out small, maybe you are starting out with a donation. And then the following year, maybe you are working on site together. And as you were talking, I was thinking, like, this could be a great team building
Yeah,
opportunity. Because I've been on these trips before, I'm not in sales, but thankfully my husband is. So I've been to like Circle of Excellence and we just get wined and dined and it's the best time ever. But I was thinking of myself, I would not mind doing something like this at an event like that, at an incentive trip, because then you're working together, you're doing that, you're team building anyway. That's always going to be a part of these trips. So why not give back while you're you know, getting to know each other and working together for a common goal. I love that. So what about the organizations though that are thinking about a CSR initiative, but also thinking of the cost? Like what does it take? Is it true that if you are incorporating CSR into events, does that lead to higher costs? And what about like, and we talked about the smaller opportunities, which is maybe the donations and things like that, but what do you think? Like, is it a big deal? Is it just, can it be intimidating for organizations to consider?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I think the most important thing is just getting your foot in the door and starting somewhere, because what we found is that if even if companies start really small one year, it's something that they can't give up the next year. They are so appreciative of the benefit, and hearing back from the organization for even that first donation that was made. And I think that it doesn't always lead to necessarily needing to have a higher cost. I mean, we can get so creative with how we want to do this, and we can have it even be no cost. We have done things where we have put out information to the attendees saying, hi, we're going to be benefiting this wonderful organization in the destination you're about to go to. Why don't you, if you'd like, to bring something with, there's a long list of items that this organization needs, whether that be a dry food product, clothing items, whatever it may be, whatever the real needs are of that organization. We can ask people to pack that thing with them or things with them and bring that to the location. And that is a no cost to the client and a great first step into integrating CSR into their global events.
So what you're saying is you really do sit down with the client and strategize what does CSR look like for your organization. I love that. So it seems like it's very customizable and you can start anywhere. That's what I
Yeah.
appreciate about that.
Yeah.
So talk about the impact, right, within our network. So I'm thinking like social media, because I know as I'm looking through LinkedIn, perusing through LinkedIn, I've seen those types of CSR events where, organizations, groups, they're coming together, they're building bikes, for example. And it just does something. Like I know we're talking about, yes, it's important to ensure our employees are having a great time. We've got to reward them, all about that. But then there's a whole nother level when I see companies, organizations giving back. That speaks to that pulls at my heartstrings, and also helps me really just view the company as a company of what's the word I'm looking for? Empathy, right? And just, taking the time. I love that. So there's also that impact and awareness. I feel like brand awareness just is automatic, right? Talk about that social impact on social media, for example.
Yeah. I think it is a key element to doing this work. We are not trying to be proprietary with this. We're not trying to say, come work with us because we're doing CSR. We want to inspire others to do this work because it's really not necessarily about us and our generation of income. This is about giving back. This is
Right.
about leaving the destinations that we frequent better than we find them, and taking that time to really recognize what the world is around us. And so we want to, by posting and by sharing the work that we're doing, we only hope that we're inspiring others, whether that be companies or other third parties that help to organize these types of events, trying to inspire them and show them that it is possible and all the creative ways you can do it.
Mm-hmm. And it's contagious. We want it to be contagious. We all need to be doing that. And I love what you said. Let's leave the destinations we go to better than when we first arrived. So what is there any success story that you can share that, from maybe even a client or, a project that you were involved with where they did incorporate CSR? Anything that you'd like to share?
Yes. Oh, there's been so many. One really fun one that I think we've done recently this year was in Jamaica. We had a client who was very much invested in doing CSR again. They had done it previously, I think, for 2 years, and incorporating an in-person activity on site, so at the hotel or resort that they were staying. And this year, when I reached out to our DMC partners, our destination management companies, those are who are key partners in making this happen and having these be so successful, as they are our local experts. When I reached out to the DMC and noted to them that we had a client who was really interested in integrating this again for the third year, but wanting to make it a really fun event, and wanting it their clients and their participants to not leave quickly, or not to feel like they just did 15 minutes of work and leave. They want them to really want to be there and get to know each other and spend that time. So when I reached out to the DMC, I asked them, what are some local organizations that you know of, that you like to support, or that you think would have some needs that we could meet? And she came back with 3 different options. And so when I went back to the client and gave these 3 different options in 3 different areas, one was respite care for people who are in need of care after in their older age or after a medical emergency. Another one was a girls' home for girls under the age of 15. And another one was a food program for people who they labeled as shut-in, so people who were not able to leave their home or had lack of mobility. Mm-hmm. And when I went back to the client and said, which one of these really fits your mission, or which one of these do you think really would resonate with your participants? He said all of them. Mm-hmm. So we went back and we decided to make an event, or make a CSR event that integrated all 3 of these organizations. So it was a little bit of a logistical challenge, or a little bit more logistically challenging, just based upon getting everyone there and making sure that the biggest importance is making sure that these nonprofits, that this is a light lift for them. We don't want them to have to go out of their way to arrive or to work, right, or to get things to be there. We want them to be able to show up and receive what the group is giving to them, or getting to meet the group and tell the group about the work that they're doing. And so we provide them with transportation. We make sure that they have transportation with the items, that if it is a tangible donation, so they have transportation back to the organization. So for this specific one in Jamaica, it was a wonderful experience. We had representatives from all 3 of the organizations come and speak to the group about the work that they do. And then we divided the group into 3 and had them all compete against each other. And they raced across the room to things packaged for each one of the organizations. And they all had to come up with a group cheer that incorporated a traditional Jamaican word that they were given. And so it ended up being an event that was full of fun, laughs, tears. Of course, I mean, sometimes these are very emotional stories that you're hearing from people who either receive the services or are working to give these services. So for this year, I think that one stands out to me as a really fun and very rewarding one that we've done.
That's definitely like all the emotions. And then also just that covers everything. I love the competitive element. That's going to be another great idea of how you can get creative with these CSRs. Now, what about measuring success? How do you measure success?
That is a great question. And I think that we can really do that in multiple ways. I mean, we do measure our success based upon the fiscal amount of money that has been given, which sometimes is actually a donation that is fiscal. Other times it is the amount that was spent on tangible items that the organization had asked for. Mm-hmm. So we can always say we spent X amount of money, but I think the real impact and the real way to measure this is by hearing from the people who received the donation, and hearing from people who were impacted by whatever the event, whatever the donation was that went to them. So we are very fortunate to get to have such wonderful relationships with the organizations, mm-hmm, and we get to follow up with them. And because we travel to the same places so often, we get to connect with them over and over again and get to see the impact year by year. We get to see people move through programs to then be working at an organization. We get to see the amount of things that were brought over amount of time, and the effect that it has had, and getting to hear those stories, I think, is always the most measurable way of success. That qualitative information that you get, I think, is the real story that needs to be told of, the work that we're doing.
Right. I can't even, I can only imagine. Like, how do you do it? I feel like I would just be emotional the entire time, especially traveling back to these places. When you think of like the orphanage, for example, you're seeing these young kids and then they're growing up. And then I love this, the whole story. Like, honestly, making the case for CSR should be extremely easy, because the why in itself should sell, and it benefits everyone. It really does. Any parting words? Like, I think you gave some really good feedback just starting. I think you talked a lot about that, like where to begin. If there's organizations out there that are just right now at the beginning stages of deciding if they want to incorporate CSR, I love your idea of like starting small and then growing from there. Any other parting words, any other advice though for our audience?
Yeah, I would just want to say that it's possible, and it can be as small as just getting to know an organization when you go to a destination and trying to figure out what the needs are. I mean, it can be something just as a conversation and a research just to figure out what is in the area around you. I think that is just the first way to start and the easiest way to start.
Mhm.
Um, and again, you can be creative and you can make it anything you want. I mean, it really, the world is yours when it comes to this. And I think you can be and you can have such a big impact and with such little effort. So, and if you need any help, I'm always happy to share any ideas and brainstorm with anyone who might need it.
Absolutely. And I think, like, honestly, I feel like we're going to have another conversation around this. I think this discussion is going to resonate really well with our audience. Thank you so much. I did want to offer to be your assistant at any time for any of these trips. I'm there. I'll help you out.
Of
No, I'm just kidding. I've heard of some of the destinations that you get to travel to, and it's phenomenal. But even more so of where you're traveling to, the CSR component is, I think, the most important piece of anything that you do with our clients. I really do. I applaud you and your team. And honestly, I wish you the best. And I hope you'll come back to join us again on Channel Talks.
Thank you so much, Akilah. It was great to be here, and you're welcome anytime. I'd love to have you hauling boxes of food around with me.
I'm right there. I'm there. I'm your girl.
Oh,
Thank you,
thank you so
Nora.
much.
All right.